that you pick up the traces of somebody who you call a suicide bomber, you pick it up on a DNA and be able to apprehend a criminal somewhere in Gongola or Borno or Yoga and be able to compare notes. If we could do it for the banks and have what we call BVN or whatever you call it, with the kind of level of destruction and perplexity in Nigeria, what's keeping us from having a DNA bank? Today, what is stopping us from harnessing the network organizations, MTN, Global, and whatever? Do you know most of these bombs are detonated through the telephone? And from their base network, these things can be dictated even before they happen? What is keeping us from now in bringing together all the, what do you call it, beverages? I was told that almost most of these bombs, especially these detonated bombs, are done with cans and whatever. Do you know in US, as I speak to you now, they've reduced most of those cans to plastics. They reduce them to plastics. Every little detail is been taken because it's a holistic thing. This is not something you wake up today, you said, I'm giving it to December. You can take December to clean out these guys from Sambisa Forest. But as I speak to you, they're infiltrating Lagos, Enugu, Owerri, and where have you? When you're saying you're clearing, all you're clearing is a group of guys who are hanging here and there in Nigeria. But to be able to take off the word, terrorism and insurgency, it requires intelligence. It requires people sitting down and knowing that even in that studio, if you're having a terrorist who doesn't know, a friend of mine who is a soldier, a Nigerian soldier, but working with Americans, said while they were working in Afghanistan, they didn't know that a colleague soldier had been indoctrinated. And finally, the radicalization. Why is it that most bombs go after preaching on Fridays? Has anybody taken time? Why does this bomb go on Friday evening? Who is talking to these guys?
Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you, Ralph, for your thoughts.
Thank you, Ralph.
He raised a whole lot of points.
Well, let me finish what I was saying about that, and I'll come to his points. I think he's flowing with us here. He just mentioned a couple of things. So, the U.S. They denied terrorists any attacks, until on that one, and that was a homegrown terror attack. So it's a different type, and then they had to kind of improvise a lot of stuff to be able to carry out that attack. Now, on 7/7/2005, July 7, 2005, London was attacked. That's a UK bomb. London was attacked. Till today, that you and I are speaking, they have denied terrorists any success. So I mean, why is Nigeria different? Why is it that since Mr. President took over, we've lost over 2,000 lives to terrorism? I mean, this is unreasonable. So we need to govern this country, okay? We need to govern this country. These things, I just gave a paper in Anaheim, California, about this terrorism in Africa. And I was able to draw a line around the continent on what is going on with this radicalization and terrorism, and then what some of the things we've even canvassed here, ways to combat this terrorism, including multilateral, bilateral cooperation, like what's happening between Nigeria and Cameroon and Niger and Chad. Because once upon a time, I said on this your program here that until those guys come on board, there's nothing that's going to happen. And I suggested I would close our borders with them because they were feeding our enemy, as it were. But now, our enemy has become their enemy, because yesterday, just as BH was bombing Borno and Adamawa, they also gave them a taste of the medicine in Cameroon. So what I'm trying to say is we have a lot of we must go back and say, how do we deny? It's not all these semantics about whether it's insurgency, whether it's terrorism, or whether this one can stop on so and so date. It's not about that. We know that date is not realistic. I can give you an answer right now, because it's not going to stop.
Okay, we need to.
It's not going to stop.
We need to wind down now. So let's take some of the comments from home. David Onworha says, elements used in making bombs must be very strictly clamped upon. And it looks like all the bombs that have gone off have not been analyzed so that we know the elements in them. Captain Ali.
Yes,
comments?
that's basically very true. That's basically very true. But you must understand something. A bomb can be made from anything. As in anything. A bomb is just the charge, the detonator, and if you are a bit more civilized, you put in a fuse. Yes. But I can tell you,
getting scary.
it's not scary, but I can tell you for one thing. Everything, anything that we are capable of doing will have to come from minds. Let me give you an example. Sherman Kent is the father of intelligence analysis. He is the father of the CIA. He was not a soldier, he was a history professor. Today we have the Sherman Kent Institute of Intelligence Analysis. That is the university of the CIA. As I speak here locally, there are 2 potential Sherman Kents with me. And we have many. It's not about operations on the field. The solutions on the field have to come from informed minds. And we have an amplitude of these minds in Nigeria. If we consolidate them and sit them down and give them a listening ear, the problems, futuristic and present, the solutions will be found in the now, not when the problem starts.
Yeah, and I would take that as maybe your closing remark. But talking about people giving information, at Tolu Adebisi is saying that in Sabo, Yaba here in Lagos, on the road leading to Queen's College, buses drop loads of northerners by night. What should security agencies be doing with this kind of information?
Again, this is why we need a narrative. The challenge we have in Nigeria is that already we have so much suspicion and so much misunderstanding. To the average southerner, anybody who is not from this side of the Niger is a northerner. Doesn't know the difference between somebody in the middle belt from somebody from corner from the northeast. And so we cannot afford to let the public take over leadership. Now what we can do is that we have to move quickly to educate and to supply the narrative. It is the narrative that helps people to know what to report and what not to report. In fact, if we allow suspicion to be heightened, we will destroy this country much faster.
Okay. John Igwe says, is it a good strategy to decide when a war ends without consulting with the adversary?
In this case, we have to be careful. A lot of people through the years, we were here when they said they had negotiated with the Boko Haram to release the girls at Glade.
Yes.
And we said, come next week, you will find out that the girls will never be released. We could say that because we understood the modus operandi, and we understood that in this case, there's an ideology behind this kind of warfare. Now, ideas cannot be killed with guns. They can only be contained by better ideas.
Now, Adeyoju seemed to be agreeing with most of the things said here. He says, I think there's a need for government to change their tactics to seeing the solution to the problem as purely military. Traditional rulers, opinion leaders, and other stakeholders in the affected areas should be engaged.
What affected areas?
Well, I think he's talking about the northeast.
The whole of Nigeria.
Again, that tells you we have not been successful in letting them know that we are at war.
The whole of Nigeria.
The whole of Nigeria, and the whole of the sub-region of West Africa, the whole of Africa, and the entire global community is being affected by global terrorism. But our media has not yet been able to communicate it into the mind of the average person. For instance, let me tell you openly that while I appreciate the agitation of those who canvass for the Chibok girls and say this and that and that and that, again, the actions that we see going on there is based on the fact that there's ignorance. As far back as how many years we've been going out trying to get, quote, Chibok girls back. It's been going on for more than 25, 30 years, as it were. Now, a nation that is at war would approach things differently. You see, there's politicking going on and politicization of things that have to do with the lives of our citizens. So we should commend the government for what it has done so far for improving its military effort. However, as watchdogs, we should be waiting to see whether they will now expand the scope by having a thorough understanding, and whatever statements they make It's so easy for us to know if a medical doctor who doesn't understand a certain level of degree of diseases comes, or who is not a specialist, examines a patient. Before he starts talking, the consultants will look at him and know that go back to malaria fever and stay at that level. Now, the moment that they begin to make the pronouncements and we see the measures that are coming up, we will know whether the government has increased its understanding to be a much more robust opinion to be able to handle this thing properly.
Okay, we have to wind up now, so I'd like you to take your last word on this matter, and the topic really is meeting the December deadline. So I want your last word on that, Honor.
Well, I don't think we'll be able to eradicate terrorism in this country by December 31st of 2015. I don't think we can also eradicate insurgency either, because every day I hear a new report that they've recaptured a new objective. So I wonder where the objectives were before. But I think there is a seriousness of purpose. But again, I think a correct threat assessment hasn't been done. A correct definition of the problem is not in place. The government sees this only as a shooting war, whereas that is only a small sliver of the problem.
Okay. Reverend Thompson?
Well, I believe Nigeria is a great country. We are destined to lead Africa and to help Africa to be free. This present terrorism challenge is a stepping stone that we will address somehow at the end of the day, and use that to gain the opportunity to make life better for the rest of Africa. We will beat it.
Captain Ali?
Well, as a parting word, I want to say something that Carl Jung put it easily. He said, who looks outwards dreams, who looks inwards awakens. We've been looking outward and dreaming. It's time to look inward and wake up.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and maybe we can just take this tweet from Toyi at Talk Africa Toyi, and it says, we need to rise above complacency and panic. Nigerians must imbibe the intuitive security threat awareness mode.
Okay, we have been chatting with 3 security experts, Ona Ekomu, Reverend Laddie Thompson, as well as Captain Umar Aliyu.
Thank you all for coming this morning.
Thank you, ladies.
To share your insights with us.
Pleasure is ours.
Sunrise will return in just a moment. Please stay with us.